All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us this morning for our webinar on Autodesk BuildingConnected. My name is Ian MacArthur. I'm an account manager on our construction team here at SolidCAD. And with us today is Lisa Stein from Autodesk from their construction solutions team. Lisa, I'll allow you to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Ian. So I'm super excited to be here. My name is Lisa Stein. I have been at Autodesk for about 4 years. I'm currently a partner marketing manager, but I come from the technical solutions executive space. So I spent a couple of years there serving global named accounts and come from the construction industry too. So I spent about 10 years as a structural engineer working in construction. So super excited to chat with you guys today.
Thanks, Lisa. So we're going to go through a few slides just to sort of set the stage for the conversation. And then I'll hand things over to Lisa to actually dive into the application and go through all of that. So I think it makes sense to start with some of the challenges that we're hearing about from construction companies in the industry today. Budgets are getting tighter, and we're dealing with tighter schedules as well. Construction is a highly competitive business, and the industry is dealing with some significant labor shortages. And as the industry advances and becomes more collaborative, across different teams, dealing with those distributed siloed teams across a project can be very challenging. When we look more granular at the pre-construction process, we find a lot more issues. And a lot of this is due to fragmented processes and workflows. For many pre-construction processes, it requires a lot of managing communication via things like email, compiling a lot of that information into spreadsheets. Who knows if these things are up to date, and a lot of other manual processes, which lead to issues when it comes to winning work, qualifying trades and subcontractors, scheduling, managing unexpected costs, and mitigating the overall risk of the project. So what does it take to win in pre-construction? We want to nurture healthier relationships between trade, subcontractors, and GCs. We need more accurate schedules so we can properly manage our project costs and be able to see potential issues well in advance. And we want to communicate across teams more effectively so we have much better transparency and successful handoffs. So this sort of gets into why BuildingConnected. It's a crowdsourced network that gives you visibility into subcontractors who are qualified to work in your area. It helps automate your bid management processes. It's highly customizable. They can be adapted to support your current processes. And it's an integrated solution that helps mitigate risk sooner in the pre-construction process. So with that, I will stop sharing and I will hand things over to Lisa.
Awesome. Thanks, Ian. So let me go ahead and share quickly. Right, and confirming, Ian, that you can see my screen here.
Yep, you are up and running.
Awesome. All right. Also, I'm going to go through BuildingConnected Pro. We're going to walk through creating a new project, what that looks like, and then finding subcontractors to invite to bid on our project, what it looks like to then go through the bid leveling process and then make a decision on who we would like to soft award and move forward. So really looking at the entire estimation process. Okay, so the first thing that we would do is to create a new project. Before I do that though, we're just going to do a quick overview of what it looks like in this space, right? So we've got a couple of tabs up here. The first are active projects. Those are obviously projects that we're currently working on. We can see the bid due date if we had that listed in there. We can see who the client is, when all this information is due to the client, right? Because we're basically compiling the bids to give to then the owner of the project, the estimated value, and then who the lead is from our end. Okay, so these are active projects, also sorted by projects that I am currently working on, projects that my office is working on, and then projects that my entire company is working on. So if you have a company that maybe has 5 or 6 different offices, you don't have to be bombarded with all of the different projects that you all are working on. You can kind of silo that information and just hone into the things that you care about the most. So that's a really nice feature of this platform. We also never delete information in this space. So when a project is no longer active and it's finished, we'll just close it. This is really helpful because we can leverage recycled information from previous projects. And we'll kind of look at that as we go through the process today, but things like bidder lists, things like, understanding what subcontractors we invited to projects before, and, if they won the project or what their estimated bid was for that project, or maybe even what their communication and interaction with us was like before, right? We want to recycle and keep all of that information so that we can make good choices on current projects and future projects. And that goes for your specific projects that your office ran, and projects that your company ran, right? So all of those are archived, and you can hop into those and look up previous project information at any time. Other things that we can do inside of BuildingConnected that really help to recycle information and help us kind of speed the process along are bidder list templates and bid form templates. So first, going into bid form templates, there are two types of bid forms that we're going to see in BuildingConnected. The first is project specific. Those are just general questions that we're asking to all of the bidders. So like, are you insured? Basic things like that everyone is going to get despite what scope they are, working on. Then we also have scope specific bid forms. And so these are things that maybe we don't want to build out every single project, right? That can take a lot of time. And often we're asking the exact same questions in regards to a project specific bid form for all of our projects. And so if we've built that out one time, or maybe we've built that out, as a company for a couple of projects before, we can recycle those, and we'll see how we can leverage those as we go through the creation of making bid forms in our project. We also can templatize bidder lists. So for example, I'm not going to embarrass myself with Canadian geography, but in the States here, if I'm working in the Seattle area and I have, a lot of data center projects where I know I've got to hire concrete firms, maybe I've got a list of concrete firms that I've used in the past that I have a really good track record with. And so every time I build out a new project, I don't want to have to search for new, concrete contractors. I want to leverage a list of trusted folks that I've used before, right? And so we can build out a bidder list template for a certain type of project or a certain type of scope, right? You really can customize that however you want to. And again, those can be templates that are specific to your projects or specific to your office's projects or even your company's projects. Okay, so just know that those are things that we can do, and those are all in an effort to make your projects more efficient, streamlined, and just get you in and out much faster. Okay, so let's go back into active projects here. Now, if I were to be creating a new project, I would just simply click new project over here. I would put in a number. So we'll put in something silly in here, and then we can just say Lisa Test, like that's the name of our project. We can put in when the bids are due. This can always change, okay? But let's just say that the bids are due in a couple of months here. And then we can customize the time as well, right? We can put in a location if we want to. Now, the only things that are required right now to create a project are just the number and the name. That's it, okay? So we can come in, we can put in the currency. If we want to get more specific around different activities that have to do with the job, we can put in the job walk date, when the RFIs are due, project size, all of those good things. This is the information that's going to get sent to all of the subcontractors that we're inviting to the project, right? So it is important that at some point you fill all of this out so that they have as much information as possible. But just in terms of project creation, getting in here, you don't have to fill all of this out just to get up and running, okay? So scrolling down here, we also have private information. So as I mentioned, everything above here, that is all going to get sent to the subcontractors, regardless of what scope of work we're inviting them to work on. The private information is just for you. And this is really helpful in terms of tracking. Again, we can track this, or we will track this for all of your projects so that you have a really good idea of, what market sector you're getting a lot of opportunities for, and just maybe making notes and what the project value is. This just kind of helps you to estimate and understand where your performance has kind of been lying and where your attention has been lying as an organization. But again, this is just private for your organization. Now, a couple of things that we do have to do in this initial project creation phase is if we want to keep the bids sealed until the bid due date, we have to select this now. We can't select this later. Okay, so if that's an option that we want to utilize, we have to choose this now, as well as the ability to require an NDA. These are the options that we've got to choose in this moment, right? But once we've got this information figured out and written in here, we can go ahead and create the project. I'm not going to do that, but if we were to create the project, it would simply add a new row on here. And then from there, I could click into that and start going through the ins and outs of the project itself. Okay, so that is project creation. But for this example, we are going to hop into a more built out project. So I'm going to hop into this Amazon Distribution Center project down here. Now you'll notice that we are in the bid packages tab. A lot of information has already been built out in here. We'll come back to this space in just a little bit. We're going to start with really essentially building out the project itself. So the first place we're going to go into is information. Now, information, you'll notice, looks just like where we were, right? And if I were to edit this information, it looks even more like where we just were, right? So if I want to update the number or the name, or now I want to come back and I have a better clarity on when, these events are taking place, I can come in and I can update these dates in here. I can always come in and update these dates. And if I update these dates after I have already invited subcontractors to bid on this project, they will be notified that these dates have changed too. So just know that you can always update these dates, and we're going to continue giving consistent communication to folks that you've already invited if you've already published this project and published the different scopes of work. Okay, you can always come in and update this information, as well as the private information down here, again, specific to your organization. But you will notice that those advanced options are no longer available, and that is because we have to do those when we're doing the initial project creation. Okay, so that's the information tab. The next place we're going to want to hop into is team, because I am certainly not going to work on this project by myself, right? And so this is where we're adding additional people from our organization to work on this project. This is not adding subcontractors. This is other people from our company. Okay, to add them, very simple. We're just typing in their email address. If they don't already have a BuildingConnected presence, then they'll just be sent an email and they'll be able to sign up for it, and then they'll be able to hop into the project itself. If they are someone that has been working in BuildingConnected for a while, then if you just hop into here, you'll see their name in here. That tells me that these people are already involved in BuildingConnected, and I could simply invite them by just clicking their name. Otherwise, we're just typing their email address in here. Now, a lot of people don't need to be heavily involved in a project, right? And so we can update their notification settings. If this person, Alexa, only needs to be notified when, let's just say she's only working on the dry utilities bid package, then that's the only time we want to give her any kind of email, because otherwise there's a ton of different bid packages in here, and Alexa is going to get incredibly overwhelmed and lose what she needs to be focused on, right? And so we can get really granular as to what people are being communicated on about. And that just is helpful so that we don't, overwhelm and kind of frustrate people. So we can, we could choose any bid packages that Alexa might be concerned with, or maybe she doesn't need any kind of email notifications, right? Maybe Alexa is just kind of a fly on the wall, needs to hop into the project on an as needed basis just to kind of, take a look at what's going on or pull out some information, but she's not heavily involved in the project. Then we can say, no email notifications for her, update that, and she's not going to get overwhelmed with communication that isn't relevant to her. Okay. And so again, this is our internal team. This is not subcontractors. This is just other folks working on this project. Next place we are going to hop into is files. So files is where we can send files to the subcontractors that we're about to invite to this project. Now, there are two types of files that you'll notice. There are project files, and then there are bid package files. You'll notice in bid package files, I can't add anything in here, right? I can't upload files. I can't add new folders. That's all grayed out. And that's because we can only do that in the individual bid packages themselves, right? Which makes sense. We can see the different bid packages that already have folders and files available, and I can hop into there, but I can't change anything. I can just kind of look down into it. But what I can manipulate and add in this view are the project files. The files going out to, again, every subcontractor, regardless of what trade they are focused on. Okay, so I can build this out however I want to, noting that however I build this out is how the subcontractor is going to receive it. So if I want to make this a little bit neater for them and organized, then I might want to build out these project folders like we've done in here, and then upload files into those project folders so that the subs have clarity on, what information pertains to what. But if there's, maybe this is a smaller project and there's not a ton of structure that really needs to be utilized in this space, I can simply just upload files. Okay, but again, these are files that are going to be sent to all subcontractors regardless of scope of work. Okay, next place we're going to hop into is bid forms. So again, as I mentioned, there are two different types of bid forms in BuildingConnected. The first is a project bid form, and that's what we're going to focus on here because, again, we are in the entire project space. We are not in a specific bid package at the moment. So we're going to look at the project bid form, but we also have scope-specific bid forms, which are the bid forms that we will look at as we get into a bid package. So you'll notice you can't even do anything here with scope-specific bid forms. But for project-specific bid forms, right, this is where we're asking general questions to all subcontractors. Now, you could come in here every time for a new project, and if this were a brand new project, there would be nothing in here, right? There would be, it would say general acknowledgements, bond information, labor rates, all of that, those subtitles, but there wouldn't be any questions in here. It would be completely empty. So if this were a new project, I would come in and I would click edit. And then this is where I can type in whatever question I want to, and then choose the response type, which is really helpful because if we think about how bids are typically sent out, we're not able to kind of mandate what response type we get back from subcontractors. And then that can cause a lot of unnecessary back and forth, right? If I'm looking for a short answer or some kind of a statement, but I just get a yes or a no back, then I have to reach out to that person again to inquire for more context. But in this capacity, I can say, look, I'm looking for a text response. That's a requirement. And if they don't respond in that way, then they're not able to send the bid form back to me, right? So this is incredibly helpful to be able to dictate what response type we're looking for from the subcontractors. But you're going to be able to come in here, type in whatever question you're wanting to ask, again, specific to general acknowledgements, labor rates, certification, anything down here. Choose the response type that you are looking for, and then say, is this required or not? Okay, we'll see where that kind of comes into play when we go into bid leveling, having something required versus not required. But if you want them to answer this, then definitely say that you want it required, because again, they will not be able to send this back if it is not, if it's required and they've not answered it. Okay, so we can come in, we can add all this information in here. Again, you've got the ability to dictate the response types. You really can build this out however you want to. I'm not going to save that, but let's say, so that's if we were creating a bid form, project bid form from scratch. I mentioned earlier at the beginning of our presentation that we could recycle bid forms from previous projects. And so what that would look like is I would go to import a form here, and you should be familiar with this, right? I've got my projects, my office's projects, my company's projects. So let's say I go into my company, and, there was this job we worked on a while ago that had a really great project bid form. We'll just grab this one, right? If I grab this, and I'm not going to because it's going to mess up the bid form in here, but if I were to grab this and use this form, it would replace the questions that I have in my current project bid form. Or if this was a brand new project, right, and there was nothing in the project bid form, it would build this out for me based off of the bid form I've used on a different project. So again, for a project-specific bid form, we're usually asking the same questions. There's not usually a need to come in here and customize questions, right? We're really recycling these from project to project. So why not build this out one time and then just import that exact same form for every project? That's going to save a ton of time. And then let's say that this is that recycled bid form that we use on every project. If I need to, in this one project instance, add an additional question specific to this project, I can do that, but I'm not having to build this out from scratch every time, right? And that's going to save a tremendous amount of time. That's also going to bring on a lot of consistency, not only for your individual team, but for the subcontractors that you're working with, right? They're going to know what to expect when working with you, and your team is going to know what kind of questions you're expecting from subcontractors. So those are the two ways that we can create project bid forms. All right, next stop for us is messages, and then we're going to get into the bid packages themselves. So in messages, this is a way that we can directly communicate with the subcontractors on the project that we've invited. Okay, so again, we haven't looked at bid packages yet. We haven't looked at adding subcontractors. So if this was a brand new project, we wouldn't be able to send a message yet because we've not published it and we haven't invited anybody. But in this project, we have, right? So if I want to send a new message to subcontractors, I can come in here and I can have there's a lot of different ways that I can send a message or who I can send it to. So for instance, I mentioned that if we were to change any of the key project information, maybe we change the RFI due dates, that information will get relayed to all the subcontractors, right? They will get an email that that's been updated, but maybe it also suits me to communicate that to the entire project team as well, right? I can come in here and regardless of what scope of work the subcontractors work in, or regardless of, their bid status, right? I can send this to the entire project and just say, hey, just wanted to make sure that you all knew or saw this update, right? And so that's a way I can communicate with everyone. Similarly, as we start receiving bids back from subcontractors, if there are folks that have not decided yet and they also haven't viewed the bid, and I want to make sure that, they have a line of sight into it and maybe they just didn't miss it for some weird reason, I can message all of those people at one time and just say, hey, checking in, really, we're hoping that you would take a look at this and and go through the bidding process with us, right? So this is a great way to contact those folks. Of course, if I send this to a big group of people, they're not all going to be, they can't see who it's been sent to, right? Everybody is BCC'd on there. So they're not going to know, oh, this other person is bidding on this project too, right? All of that's private. This is just a mass way for us to be able to communicate with those folks. Also, I could choose to just, reach out to the subcontractors that are bidding on the dumpster bid package, right? Or the concrete bid package. So there's a lot of clarity, a lot of flexibility in here, or I could just, message an individual person, right? What's nice though, is that this doesn't go to my email. This stays in the messages here, and anybody else that's working on my internal team has insight to these messages too. And so we're keeping communication in a single space, right? If we are working on a big, we've got a big project team and we're all communicating with subcontractors, but we're doing it via email, then I'm going to get emails, Ian's going to get emails. We might not talk about those emails. So we're not up to date on, what the subcontractors are saying. We have different understandings of maybe when they might be submitting bids or what's going on with them. So having this centralized communication platform is really helpful so that everybody on your project team has insight into who's communicating what, right? And what those folks are saying. So this is incredibly helpful. All right. So from here, we will hop into bid packages. Now, again, this is a project that's already been built out. Clearly, a lot of work has been done in here. If this were a brand new project, there would not be any bid packages in here. However, same thing as with the bid forms. If there were certain bid packages we knew we were going to be working on with this project, we could import them from a previous project too, right? And we could also pull in the subcontractors that we had invited to those specific bid packages too. So you do not have to start this from scratch. You can import this via a template, just like we did with bid forms. Okay, but also you could start from scratch and build out all of the bid packages directly from here by just toggling over to this button here. Okay, so let's do that. Let's go ahead and create a new bid package here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is put a number in here. So we might do a concrete bid package. I'm going to type in the name concrete. You'll notice that a whole bunch of different options pop up for me, right? So I could be doing concrete accessories, finishing, formwork, whatever the case is. I can get as specific as I want to. For this instance, I'm just going to say concrete. But where it matters in our specificity is in keywords, because keywords are what we're going to leverage when we go into the builders network, which is where we find subcontractors to do the type of work that we're creating a bid package for. Okay, so if I am looking for folks that do concrete, but they also do form work and they also do concrete accessories, then I'm going to want to get as specific as possible so that I make sure that my search results are yielding the type of work that I am really looking for. Okay, and we can add up to 4 different keywords in here. So you notice though that concrete automatically populated just based off of the bid package name. So that is nice and consistent as well. The bid package lead is going to be the person from your organization that's in charge of this bid package. It's kind of managing this bid package. So it could be anybody from the project team. It's going to default to the person that's in charge of the overall project, but of course you can change that. So, you know, I could come in here and add my name, but I don't want extra work. So we'll leave this with Justin. And then we can put an estimated cost in here. That cost is just for us. It's what we're going to utilize when we go into the bid leveling platform of this product. It's just so we can kind of, you know, look at what the bids are coming in at versus where we think that this bid should be at. So we might just say 10 grand in here. And then any instructions that we're wanting to send to the subcontractors, right? So again, this is the information that's going to be sent specifically to these concrete subs that we're about to invite. If the due dates for these activities are different from the project due dates, then we can untoggle use project due dates. So you see that these project due dates automatically came in based off of the project due dates, right? But if these are different for concrete, just untoggle those and you can give the concrete subcontractors a different bid due date, right? That differs from the project due date. So that's totally up to you. But again, this is what's going to go out in the subcontractor bid package that we send out. So from here, we'd go ahead and save this. And so now you'll notice same kind of thing, right? We've got files, messages, bid form, bid leveling. So the first thing we're going to do is we'll go ahead and add bidders. So click on add bidders here. Now there are 3 different ways to add bidders. We can search for them in the builders network, which is the avenue that we are going to take. But the other 2 that I want to mention are just sending someone an email, right? If they're not in the builders network for whatever reason, but you have their email address, maybe you've never used them on a project before, just type in their email and that's going to add them to the bidders list and they will get the bid invite for this concrete bid package. You also could import them. Okay, so this should look familiar, right? My projects, my office, my company. Maybe we have a great list of concrete subs that we used for a previous project, right? And so let's go down to this karaoke bar project or this one. Okay, so we go to this previous Main Street College project, right? Now I can see the bid packages that were included in that project. So I can go into concrete here. I can choose that. Here are the bidders that we utilized for that previous project. Maybe, you know, I didn't really care for Cemex, so I'm going to delete them. And I didn't really like Great Builders, but everybody else was great. Okay, I can go ahead and add all of those folks. Now those have automatically been added to my concrete bid package, right? Just based off of a previous project. They didn't have to do anything except just grab them from a previous project. So that saves a tremendous amount of time. But let's say, okay, I've got a lot of good subcontractors in here, but I'm also looking to add a couple of new ones. So I'm going to go into the search tab up here, and this is where I'm going to utilize the builders network. So we can see the address of our job site, right? So we've got to make sure that that's right because this is an area that these folks are saying that they do service in. So it's very important that you just double check this and make sure you've got the right address in here. We also see the work performed, right? These are the keywords I grabbed earlier. So making sure that these are accurate, also important to make sure that we've got subcontractors that are going to do the type of work that we're looking for. Now, we're not going to go into it today, but there is another platform called TradeTap that is a risk and qualification platform. That is a platform that connects directly to BuildingConnected Pro. And so if you were utilizing that, you could say, okay, we also want subcontractors that we've already qualified or we've qualified with exceptions or whatever the status is. So this has to do with TradeTap TradeTap, which again is that qualification and risk assessment platform that we can talk about at another time. So just know that that's what that is if you want to get even more granular into who you're searching for. But these are the results that we've got, right, in the area of work that we're looking for, that do the type of do the type of scope of work that we're searching for. So I can click into one of these subcontractors. I can learn about their company information, where they're located. I can see their employees, what type of work they do, and I can see their service area. I also can see if there are any reviews from folks from my organization. So these are people inside of my organization that have previously worked with this subcontractor and left a review for them. These are not public reviews. The subcontractor does not know that these reviews exist. These are just for our organization to help us make good choices. So they dropped the ball. I'm not sure that I want to work with them. So we'll X out of that one. But maybe, the McNary company, okay, they're great. They look a lot better, right? And so I'm happy with this. They work in my service area. From here, I can just go ahead and add them, right? What person do I want to contact? Well, we'll contact Mike McNary, right? So now he's been added to our bidder list too, right? And that's the process. I'm just going to add a couple of people down here. These subcontractors are now being added to our bid, our concrete bid. Okay. Similarly, you could add all 126 companies if you felt like doing that. But from here, we can just X out. Now we're taken back to our bidder list. We see the McNary company in here, right? We've got all of those subcontractors in here. And so the next step, well, not quite next step, but once we're ready with this bid package to be published, we would publish it. All of these folks would then be contacted. And as their bids start coming in, we'd be able to sort by the bidding status. And we'll take a look at that in just a second. But before we go ahead and publish this bid, we're going to want to go into files here. Now, previously, we looked at project files, right? We looked at that in the entire project itself. But in this space, we'd be looking at bid package files. So are there files specific to the concrete folks, right, that they need? Again, we can build out a folder structure if we want to, or we can just upload individual files. But these are files that will just be sent to these bidders that we've added to this bid package. We also can communicate with these subcontractors specifically, right? So once we publish this, this is just a more siloed space that we can just look at messages coming in from the concrete subcontractor. So once I publish this, all of these other general messages would go away. It would just be the messages that we're getting in from concrete subcontractors. And the last thing that we need to do prior to publishing this is go to the bid form. So if we scroll down, we can see the project bid form, but we notice I can't make any changes to it, right? And that is, again, because we can only make changes to that in the project itself. We're now in the scope specific bid form. So from here, same exact thing, right? Different subtitles, line items, alternates, scope specific clarifications, different from the project specific bid form, but same process. I can go into edit here. So if we go into edit, I can build this out, right? I can add different line items. I can say, is this required? Very important. If you want these certain line items to come in, you have to say that they're required, or they might not send them in, right? And so if you're wanting all of these numbers, just make sure you make this a requirement, because again, if they don't fill those out and they're required, they can't send the form back in. You also get to choose the response type. This is huge when it comes to units, especially in estimating, because typically you've got to then extract all of this to an Excel spreadsheet. You've got to manipulate the numbers to get all the units to be consistent. We're usually comparing apples to oranges to bananas, but if we are dictating the response type in here, we're eliminating that huge, really not fun task that I used to have to do as an engineer. So really great that we can dictate the response type in here. So we can come down to all of the different subtitles, fill out all the information that we're looking for from this subcontractor, and we could go ahead and save it. Similarly, I could import a form from a previous project, right? And so let's say, again, I'm using this old project, this Autodesk Nashville down here. I see that there's a concrete package from that one. I'm going to use this form, and you can notice how that instantly updated with the questions that I had asked for that project before. Now, if I need to make any edits to this specific project, I can, but I'm not having to start from scratch, right? And so that's incredibly helpful. So once we're done with all this, we would go ahead and publish this. Then this bid form will get sent out to all of the bidders that we added to the bid list, and we would start to watch those bids come in, and that's when we'll move into the bid leveling process. So if I were to publish, I would just click publish. I am not going to, I'm just going to go ahead and delete this. All right, and we're taken back into the bid package central area itself, right? So we can see all of the different bid packages in here. We can see the lead. This is the person from our organization that's in charge of the bid package, the bid package number, when the bids are due, how many folks we've invited, right? How many have viewed it, how many are bidding on it, how many bids we've received, and then what the estimate price is, right? This is our number. So because it's our number, we can come in and change it, right? If we say, oh, you know, I think dumpsters actually is going to be $750, we can come in and update that. Again, this is just going to be helpful as we go into the bid leveling process. This estimated number is not a number that any of the subcontractors are going to see. But it's really nice to be able to get clarity on, okay, these are how many invites we've sent and how many we've viewed and how many are bidding, right? To understand that the bids are coming in. Or is there, you know, a bid package that we sent out that we really haven't gotten any bids for? Maybe this is one that we need to take another look at and communicate with those folks again to see what's going on. Okay, so let's go into dumpsters though. So previously, when we were in the concrete bid package, we didn't have any, the bidding status here it wasn't sent yet, right? Once we've published it, and we notice we don't have those functions anymore because this has been published. Once we publish, we start getting numbers or bidding responses in from the subcontractors. So when I come back into a published bid package and I go into the bidders tab, I can sort by the bidding status. I can see my estimated cost. Again, that's private to my organization, just helpful in my bid leveling process. But I can see all the subcontractors that we've invited and their bid status, right? So these folks have decided to not bid. They're not bidding. These folks are still undecided. These guys are bidding. Here are some bids that have come in. And if I want additional clarity to kind of understand, you know, their process or maybe their interaction with us, I can click into one of these companies and scroll down on the right-hand side, see who I invited, and I can see the history. So Dustin from Dustin's demo, he updated the bidding state to bidding on November 30th, right? Where he, you know, we have clarity and we have transparency into what they've been doing, right? When did they change the bidding state? Are they actively working on this? That's super important. If we have someone that's undecided and it's someone that maybe we've worked with a lot in the past and we're kind of confused as to why we haven't heard from them, then we might click on that organization. We might just go ahead and either resend the invitation or send them a message and say, hey, Lewis, we always work with you. We always hear from you. Just wanted to check in and see what's going on, right? So this is just a really good way to understand, are there other people that we need to maybe send an additional touch to, reach out to again, check in with, but also just to get a good understanding of who has been processing the bids and interacting with them. So once we're happy though with the amount of bids that we've gotten in, we'll go ahead and go into the bid leveling tab here. So on the left-hand side, this is your estimated cost again, right? In this instance, our company is named Great Builders. This is our estimated cost. We can always change that. That's private to our organization. We see all of the scope specific questions that we asked, right? So this is essentially the scope specific bid form. And if anything was required, then we will see the responses from the subcontractor. So that's why I say, if it's not required, it might not show up in here. So if you're wanting all of these line items to have numbers by them, then definitely dictate them as required so that you've got those numbers in. We scroll down, we continue to see the scope specific bid form. Then if we scroll all the way down, we start to see the general acknowledgements, right? So this is also the project specific bid form as well. So these two are kind of compiled together. Now, if it's easier for you to look at this information in Excel, then you can certainly export this. It will take it right out into Excel. It will look just like this, but you can kind of minimize it, make it easier to see it all at one time if that works better for you. But if you want to utilize it in this space, perfectly fine. So what we're seeing as I scroll around on the right are all of the subcontractors that have sent in their bids, right? So again, if all of these line items were required, I would see all of their numbers in here. But I can see their leveled bids from this instance. So what I might want to do, right? is go into the drop down, see if maybe they had previous proposals that they had sent in. So I don't know that any of these have, but if they had previous versions that they sent in, we could also toggle to previous versions in here too, and take a look at those compared to everyone else's. If we get a new version from the subcontractor, the newest version will be what shows up in the bid leveling space in here. If there is a subcontractor that just doesn't want to work in a tech space like this, right? That's just fine. You know, we don't have to say, well, then we're not going to accept your bid. You can add a proposal, right? You can manually add a proposal. So let's say that, you know, Lewis does decide to send a proposal in, but he is just refusing to do it via the computer. We can say, okay, no worries, Lewis, you just send us over that faxed proposal, or, you know, however you're wanting to send it, and we will go through and put those numbers in for you, right? Again, this is the scope specific bid form followed by the project specific bid form down here. We'll submit that. We can drag and drop the actual image of the file that he's sending over to us. Once we submit that and save it, that's going to show up as an additional column in here so that we can look at Lewis's proposal along with all the other proposals that we've received in the bid leveling space. Okay, once we have decided on the subcontractor that we would like to soft award, we can go into the drop down, mark them as soft awarded. What that's going to do is move them all the way over to the left, right? As far over as we can go until we get to our information and our bidding information. That's also going to put their leveled bid in the bid package home space, right? So if we remember, this is $1,200 and we go back into the bid package space here for dumpsters, we've got the leveled bid is $1,200 and it was from this company, right? So when we soft award, we're not sending a message to that subcontractor and saying, yay, you've won, right? We're not at all doing that. We are simply soft awarding so that that leveled bid comes into this home space. And as we level all of the different bids for all of our different bid packages down here, we start to get the total of our project, right? The total leveled estimation of our project versus what we estimated the project at. And that just gives us that clarity into, you know, where did we think we would be versus where we're kind of showing up at. Okay, so this is all of the bids. Then if we want to add additional costs into this project, things like general conditions, things like contingencies, fees, right? We can do that as well. You can build this out however you want to, add your line items down here, and then that's going to tweak your total forecasted costs as well. And that's essentially the entire bidding process, the entire estimation process. From here, if you want to, you know, message any of these subcontractors once they've soft awarded, you certainly can message them. But again, we're not going to message them from the platform and say, you've been soft awarded. So don't worry if you accidentally soft award someone or soft award and then decide somebody else actually should be soft awarded. No one is being communicated that. You can communicate that to them on their own if you want to. When you're done with this space, you can export this into Excel to share with other folks from your organization too. But all of this information will live in here. So that's essentially the process. A couple of other things that I want to show you are the calendar function in here. So all of the RFIs, all of the job walks, all of, you know, the project start dates, those will show up on your calendar in here. You can look at just your calendar, which would be just the projects that you are involved in, or your office's calendar, right? That could get really overwhelming. So maybe you just want to look at the things that pertain to you. You also, if this got really overwhelming, could just say, mine is clearly not overwhelming, but we could say, I just want to look at job walks, right? And just have that activity type show up on your calendar. If you want to sync this with your Outlook or your Gmail, you can do that too. A lot of folks don't want to come in here just to look at those activity due dates. They want those on the calendar that they look at every day. And so you could sync that with your own calendar that you look at all the time. A couple of other areas that we're going to look at are bid history. So as I mentioned, we don't delete anything in BuildingConnected. It all lives in here. We just archive things. So let's say that there's a subcontractor you're curious about working with, right? We can go into bids received before and we can search for a certain vendor to see what our experience has been before with that, right? We can see what project they worked on us or on with us before. We can see what their bids were. We can see what kind of interactions we had. All of this is interactive. These are all hyperlinks, right? So if I'm curious about, this bid that we got a while ago from, XYZ contractor, I can hop into the project itself to learn more about that interaction with that subcontractor. So all of this information is always in here, and you can filter it however you want to. If you're looking for, certain interactions with concrete, right, bid packages, we can find that information, or certain clients or certain market sectors, we can find that. And then the last space I want to go into is analytics. These are analytics about your organization. So from here, we can see the total number of projects that you published in BuildingConnected, what your win rate is, what your average fee percentage is, and then just over time, how you've kind of been performing, where you've been winning, where you've been losing, where there's been some kind of unknown status, maybe not a win or a loss, some other situation. We also can see where your projects have, for the most part, been, right? So those will be mapped out for you, and then who your top clients are, as well as what market sector you work in. Your top account managers and your lead estimators, right? So all of this good information is in here. This is general. If you want to filter this, you certainly can, right? So if, again, you have different offices, we could filter this information by your Amsterdam office or your Atlanta office, or if you want to filter this by a certain client, you could do that, or by a certain market sector, you could do that, right? So there's a lot of different possibility in terms of looking at analytics in here, but this information is really, really valuable just to kind of have a good handle on what your performance has been to date. And that is really what I've got to share for BuildingConnected. So I think Ian and I are happy to take any questions if there's any questions at this time.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lisa. That was great. So give people some time now just to enter some questions into the Q&A field if there are any. I'm just going to hop back into the slide deck really quickly here. Should be able to see that now. I just wanted to highlight, a lot of customers in the AEC industry are familiar with Autodesk products through things that are called collections, bundles of products that they've created. Autodesk is now starting to offer these types of bundles for their Autodesk construction solution products. So for instance, the BuildingConnected solutions are included in the pre-construction bundle, which includes Autodesk Takeoff for 2D and 3D quantity takeoffs in the cloud, as well as the BuildingConnected solutions, BuildingConnected Pro, which we saw today for GCs. BidBoard Pro is the solution for subcontractors, and also includes TradeTap, which is that trade qualification tool. Just keeping an eye on the chat here. Doesn't seem like there are any questions, but I'll leave the slide up for a moment. If you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and we'll be able to respond and help you out with anything like that. But we'll give it, I guess, another 30 seconds. If there's no other questions, we'll give everybody 10 minutes back in their day.